Hello, everyone. This is your boy Reg Hatchet with yet another episode of the Blackprint. This is episode 7. There is no aspect of everyday life that isn't affected or completely driven by Black culture. Fortune 500 companies pay top dollar to execs who can translate and communicate directly to our community. Social media influencers must keep up with trends in order to stay relevant. But too often, our opinions and our concerns fall on deaf ears when the listener isn't trying to make money off of us. We all know that nothing important can be built without a carefully laid out blueprint, and there is no structure standing in our society, either literally or figuratively, in which one of our fingerprints aren't all over both the design and the construction, but they never seem to ask us how we feel about what we've built. Well, they don't have to ask anymore. Welcome to the Black Print. I'm glad you guys are rocking with me. This is episode 7, as I said, and today we have a very special guest, one of my oldest friends, um, entrepreneur, great legendary basketball player in the area, and just an all around good guy. So I think you guys will definitely enjoy this particular interview. My man Anthony Barrett will be coming on. Let me see if, oh yeah, he's definitely ready. Let's bring him in.
All
And
right.
me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. I hear you fine. How you doing, sir?
Doing well, man. Doing well.
Okay, yeah. So let's just jump right into it, man. I like to in the beginning, we talk about kind of like the origins, if you will, and then we'll get a little bit into like what business ventures and projects you're working on, and then at the end we kind of talk about your opinion on things that are relevant to the Black culture, current events and stuff like that. So
All
we
right.
can start at the beginning, bro. Like so, you started out pretty much. I think a lot of people in the area kind of became familiar with you because you were a basketball player. Um, very young. So like how did you get into playing basketball and how did that whole situation come about?
Oh man. I think I started playing early on, probably about sixth grade or so. I was a late bloomer. I think I started shooting around in a little backyard in the crates. If you remember, right back on Simpson Street, shooting in the crates on a pole. It actually wasn't even a pole; it was a tree. Um,
Yeah.
so I think starting out there, and then also starting out playing at Mark Twain, a little open gym, and just working at it.
I think the first time I ever saw you shoot the ball, it was on the back of Andre Chisholm's house, man. Andre
Yeah,
Chisholm, DJ Andre Chisholm, that's my guy. We all went to Mark Twain School together, so Andre had a hoop in his backyard. We used to go back there on Simpson Street and play ball in Andre's backyard. And you used to let that thing go all the way from
yeah,
the driveway. You know what I
yeah.
mean?
We're shooting from the kitchen, actually, literally, stand on like the kitchen door. So I think that was the part that that's where I started getting the love. Playing back there, shooting, and then on top of that, when we on outside in the streets and the crates, and then in a few other backyards. So really shooting in the dirt, and then of course, once we started going down to the park, Cronin Bowles Park, playing outside, that kind of just grew to love more once you got around the OGs, and it's always better than the OGs anyway. So that just kept that pushed us.
No doubt. So you started out. You said you was a late bloomer because you didn't start playing ball until late. When did you realize that you could be good at it? When do you remember the moment when you felt like I'm really good? Like
Yeah, I'm gonna be a little silly though, but I remember when I first started playing. I don't know if you remember this when we were at Mark Twain and I was dribbling, and you start kicking the ball off your feet when you dribbling.
yeah, uh-huh.
Coach, I heard the coach like, listen, you gotta stop kicking the ball, dribbling and kicking the ball. That's how raw it was. But I think once I started realizing that I was starting to get really good was it was a blacktop. We was down in Bowles Park playing out there, and we were the younger side on the left side of the court, the OGs on the other side. And I started playing, and the OGs like, yo, that little kid like Michael Jordan, that little kid getting it in. So that's why I started saying, yeah, I'm halfway decent at this little thing, because we was going over there and we was putting in work. You know, at that time we were like 13, 14. And that's when I started realizing, yeah, we on to something, you know.
Was there anybody who pushed you back then? Any matchups? Because I think I was talking to in the last interview I was talking to Will Solomon, and you know, like back then, this is before everybody really got big names. They were all, you know, young and on the come up. But you know, you played against a lot of the top, you know, guys in the state, you know, at an early age. So was there anybody that, you know, you said like, yo, I like playing against him because, you know, he pushes me, or, you know what I mean? I really want to compete against him.
All right, man. It's kind of tough to say that, because this was part of the things that kind of pushed me, but also at the same time, that was a little bit of my detriment. Just, you know, arrogance. You don't really be thinking like nobody really gonna stop you. We was always so cocky.
Right.
But you know, but what I could say is there were people that I always looked up to, and I always respected their game. And I'll touch base on Will a little bit later too, but obviously I respected, you know, the ones that are directly around. So even when we were playing and we started doing a little bit of the AAU or the travel, you know, you always obviously respected Kendrick and what he was doing, Mike Thompson.
Kendrick Moore you're talking about, right?
Yep. Yeah. Kendrick Moore is still, you know, Mike Thompson and the crew. Obviously a lot of respect for Ty White, because I remember seeing a lot of them when we were doing a lot of the Parker stuff. And like, man, these dudes out here putting in work, because we across town, we talk a lot of trash, but when you go across town, you get a chance to play with them. You're like, man, these dudes from my hood too. These dudes just as special, you know. So I think I gained a lot of respect just watching them dudes putting in work. You know, like I mentioned, you know, Mike Thompson is probably another sleeper one that no one realized was really, really good around here, especially when you know they were traveling and playing with Silk, Marcus, Ty White. I've witnessed and we watched some of those games. Like, man, these dudes are thorough, man. These dudes are thorough. And I remember we went to see them put us. I believe it was against the Gauchos when they were putting in work up there, up in upstate New York. And I'm like, this dude is thorough, man. But you know, they don't always get mentioned as much. And you know, obviously I always loved Kendrick game, because he was always so smooth, man, and he always got it done too. So want to acknowledge that. But on the flip side, you know, it's always I wasn't known as a great defender, you know, but when I look at, you know, guards that was, you know, if I could just identify not one particular guard that I directly played against, but when I look at the talent of what I've seen, I've always had a lot of respect, obviously, for Will. I always loved Will Gaines since the day I saw Will play, because I was a shooter, and I was like, Will and Henry was like two of the younger kids I ever seen let it fly. But definitely Will, because I think I came back when I played with them out there. I forgot, it was New Hampshire, and that was the first time I got called the N-word too by somebody.
Yeah, you know what? I remember that because you had went with Coach Mark for a weekend tournament, and you came back and you was like, "Yo, that kid Will, man, like that kid really could shoot." Like, you know, I remember you just being real stuck on it, like, "Nah, Reg, like little home different, like you different."
Yep, you know, because I always was like, damn, I know I was the best shooter, but then I seen I was like, nah, this kid built a little different. This is a different kind of ratchet he got. Yeah. You know, ever since then, you know, obviously, you know, Vic, we see Vic work close up, you know, at Weaver, and then we also play with Vic out in the Bloomfield League. So we've seen Vic. So, you know,
Victor Maldonado, aka Chino. That's who you're talking about.
Yeah. So it's nothing but respect for Chino and Vic, because I seen that work close up. When he was on our team, we was out there playing, he was putting in work, you know. So I think I just appreciate a lot of the players, and obviously, you know, one that's not directly here that I always looked up as another guard. When we were seeing young Tyson Wheeler with some of the work that he was doing, I was like, man, this dude is quick, because I think that was our first exposure to like a real elite level guard. When we went down, I don't know if I was even playing that time, but I caught a little bit from the bench when he was putting in work against Weaver, and I was like, yo, you know, we went to New London, like, you know, ball plays in New London. And home lit us up.
Right.
And then fast forward, he had an excellent career at URI and was out there killing all the guards in the country. So, you know, so I think that was one of the times I realized there's really some good, talented guards around here. But It was different, different time. It wasn't always as marketed like they are now.
You know what it was? I think, with you and I both being from, Bowes Park, like we had a different mindset where, first of all, if you wasn't from our hood, we didn't think you was good. And you had to prove it to us by playing against us. Even if we saw you playing against somebody else, it's like, well, we don't know how good them other dudes is. They may not be that good. So it really didn't become official until you played against us and did work against us. Then that's when, one of us would be like, nah, I think this dude is really good. You know what I'm saying? Because I remember Tyson, that game against New London that you're talking about. I remember like after that was like, nah, this dude's the real deal. You know what I'm saying? Like it's not just hype. Like he could play. But I also remember, and I think we had this conversation before. A lot of people don't know you and I go way, 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 way back. But our boy Troy Westbury, to me, it was the New London game that made me realize how good we were, because we played with Troy all the time. Troy was one of our best friends. But I think Tyson had like 27 that game, and I think Troy had like 25. You know what I mean? And it was just kind of like everybody's talking about Tyson. He's a Division I prospect. But my boy that I play with every day, who I be roasting, is out there killing Tyson too. Like, you know what I mean? So it was kind of like a eye opener that, we could be that good. If Troy's out there doing that against Tyson, then Tyler got to give me some minutes, because if Troy doing it, I could do it, type of thing. It was kind of like that kind of a thing.
No, I agree 100%, man, and definitely shout out to Troy Westbury, because I mean, when you talk about people that push you, that we were pushing each other every day, even though we were balling together, we pushed each other, and I definitely second that, because he was putting in work. And then another time that I'll say that you realize, like, man, my boy really nice. He was out here, putting that work out in Bloomfield in a hostile working environment, and he was out there putting work. I was like, yeah, that's my guy right there, man. And I'm proud, because we all mature at different levels, but Troy, came in with that mentality, that killer mentality, and he just went after it. So definitely shout out to Troy Westbury.
So, again, I'm one of the people that was around that really saw your development from the beginning. And would you agree with the assessment that even when you first started playing basketball, you always knew how to shoot, though? Like you could always shoot the ball?
Yeah, somebody was just actually telling me that, you was born like that. I'm like, nah, I think I put in work. And I think I can go back a little early on, when even at Mark Twain, when I used to, coach RP, I believe he passed away, Mr. Wesley. He was the one that was trying to tell me some techniques, how to hold, how to put on your fingertips, how to spin off your fingertips, how to concentrate, how to focus, and how to aim, and make sure you got enough arc, all of those things. So I started practicing that. And then at the time, early on, the ball was a little too heavy, so I had to try to figure out mechanics, how to lift the ball and how to shoot from far. So I just kept practicing that. Eventually, after a while, when you determine it, the results, started coming along. So I guess I would say I had a good hand-eye coordination. Plus, I was a little artistic anyway. I like to, draw at the time. So I think my hand and eye coordination really helped with it a little bit too, just having that artistic side.
No, you're not gonna gloss over that. There's something very, very much true about that statement. I feel like through my travels, a lot of the great shooters that I know can draw. You know what I mean? So there's definitely a connection between the hand-eye coordination of being able to see an image and recreate it with your hands, and being able to shoot the basketball. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's definitely something to that. Like, Will draw. There's a bunch of shooters that I know that can draw as well. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I used to visualize the basket going in, visualize everything, kind of see it, and every time you just thought it was going in every time. So it's just like, it's one of those things you just kind of, you just see it, you aim for it, and you practice the distance, and obviously the muscle memory part comes into it.
So there's a lot of people don't realize this, that you are a Weaver legend, and you only played a season at Weaver. Like, some people, in their minds, like, again, it's called the Mandela effect, when you really believe something happened that didn't really happen. but there's a lot of people that feel like you played like 4 years at Weaver and you really only played a season and a half at Weaver. You know what I mean? Probably like 25 or 30 career games at Weaver High School. So why do you feel like you had such an impact in such a short amount of time?
Yeah, no, that's one of the things I get, I look back in hindsight, you get disappointed that you didn't really tap into your potential. I speak to that around the classroom side, but I think it's from the work that you was doing in the streets, when you're playing locally and, ballers respect ballers, they know, like, and even though I played about 30 games or so, there's a lot of people that I know that was nice that never even had a chance to even touch, like a high school gym, and it was better players in the streets than they were ever in the, in schools. And so for me, I think it was just the level of work that we were putting in locally, traveling around the city that, garnered some respect. But then once, I think bottom line, I was just a hard matchup for whoever wanted it. That was just a hard matchup, man. Because I think people looked at the J, but it wasn't just the J, man. It had a little bit of bounce, had a little, decent amount of handle. So it was a little bit more than that. And I think it was just a hard matchup. And, ballers respect ballers.
Yeah, no doubt. I don't remember who it was. It might have been AJ Williams Bay. But I was somewhere and they was a little bit saucy, so they was talking, just having fun with it. And they was like, yo, Aunt Barrett, I swear, was my favorite basketball player ever. He was like, yo, I started loving this dude when it was Bowles Park playing against Rawson at Bowles Park. And AJ was saying that he saw you do the Jordan when you took off with the right hand and switched it to the left and laid it. And he was just like, yo, this dude like my age doing the Jordan shit. Like that changed his whole, you know what I'm saying? He was like, yo, Aunt Barrett, I was there. Like, can't nobody tell me what I saw. Like, Aunt Barrett did the switch hands thing in that game. Do you remember that?
I do, like it was yesterday, because it was like a legendary play. I want to say, I think I had on black Levi's with some white Reebok Classics on.
Yeah, you did have on some Reeboks. I remember that, because you didn't come there to play. It was just like, oh, they showed up. I don't have my basketball stuff, but I'm still rocking.
Yeah, and I think it was a dude named Rome. That was with Mark on him. We went up against him, about to throw it in there.
Yeah,
it up last minute and laid it with the left. So yeah, that's crazy. I wish we had that on footage, man. That was a dope day though. But shout out to all of us, because shout out to you too, Reg, because we lit that club. That club was lit that night.
It was. It was one thing about the Boys and Girls Club is we all got on each other, we ranked on each other, but when other people came around, it was family. Like, you know what I mean? We're not gonna let nobody come to the club and try to like outshine us or nothing like that. It was just, a different wave back then. But I wanted to bring that up because a few years ago when AJ said that to me, we was out and somewhere, and he was just like, yo, Aunt Barrett did the Michael Jordan in a real pickup game. Like, you know what I'm saying? So let's fast forward a little bit past Weaver. One of the things that I think is overlooked about you that's amazing is that after Weaver, you didn't go to school. You basically were home for a year and a half, 2 years, something like that, and then went to school and still made All-American after 2 years off of basically not doing anything. You know what I mean? Like, a lot of people would have fell out of shape, stopped playing ball, lost confidence, or whatever it was. But for you to take that time off and then still come back and not just play, because you went to Mitchell College, which was a junior college at the time. It's now a Division III school, I believe. But you went, to a junior college and made All-American when basically the coach didn't even know you or whatever. You came out the woodworks. Like, explain or talk about that whole process, because I feel like when you talk about the legend of Anthony Barrett, that gets glossed over, but that's very important and very big that, you was able to go from basically being at home doing nothing to All-American, you know what I'm saying, like the next year. So, you know what I mean? So, like, Talk about that a little bit.
So so after I left Weaver, after I graduated from Weaver, I was trying to get into some prep schools, directly after. You got to remember, take you back to '95. It's not the way it is now, where you can pretty much say go to any school, like get into any prep. Takes a lot of a lot of major network influence, dollars, all of that kind of stuff. So back then, I was just trying to get to prep to continue my career because like Reg mentioned earlier, I only had played 30 games. So it wasn't like I was looking for that national presence where I only played 30 games. That AAU circuit is not the way it is now.
Right.
So it wasn't as much opportunity to really put myself on that national map the way I really wanted to. So I was looking to go to a prep to be able to do it at a prep level. And the numbers couldn't work out. I was working with Mr. Jihad at the time, trying to get me into some preps. It didn't matter if it was Loomis or anywhere that I can be able to do a post grad just to build my stock up. And it just never worked. Then eventually at some point after trying for like a year and a half, I said, I'm just going to go to any school. And this is back then where it was just tape. I don't care what school it is. I'm going to go to a school, get some tape, and put it out to as much D1 schools as possible. And I got at least, touch back before that, what made me just made a decision not to go to school directly after that. So right after high school, I had a whole bunch of little D1s, Western and so forth, some small D3s. And then I went to a visit to go play. And when I tell you the things I was doing, I said, okay, no, I'm wasting my time here. And I said, no, I ain't gonna go no D3. That's not a level I can play at. So that's why I said I'd rather go, do a JUCO or go any school and just go ahead and play and just, transfer out. So I got to Mitchell, shout out to you, Reg. You was there with me. So we went down there, NKB, RP, Kev Brown. And we were there and we just walked on, just, three cocky kids from the city of Hartford that, matter of fact, three cocky kids from Bowes Park, period. So right. we showed up and we always had the mentality that we were better than whoever that was going to be in front of us. And we just went out there and started playing, and they had their recruits that they actually went out and physically recruited to come to the school. And we just showed out and got to a point where they recognized there was some talent there. Then we started playing, and we had some good intramurals, some good battles. And I think we drew the eye of the coach and put us on a team.
Still to this day, I say that Mitchell College team is the best team I've ever been affiliated with, talent-wise. And then what Mitchell taught me was you have to open yourself up to people from outside of your city, outside of your neighborhood, because I met some lifelong friends at Mitchell. You know what I mean? Like, really, that Mitchell basketball team became a family. It's still dudes to this day that I keep in contact with. And also, man, some of them dudes really could play. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, we start seeing dudes from Baltimore, DC, and dudes from Boston, dudes from New York. Like, these dudes really, they not just, they nice too. Every hood got their own story, you know what I mean? So that kind of, but again, it put me on to Ant is my guy. And even amongst all this talent that's here, to me, it's clear, like, my guy is the best dude here. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know what I mean? So again, that's in my mind, it was like, yo, like, I know for a fact that I could play here. You know what I'm saying? Because the dude that I played with basically every day for the last 6 years is an All-American here. You know what I mean? Like, putting up, breaking records and stuff like that. So Mitchell was definitely a great it was a great moment for me, and I think it turned me on to wanting to coach, I believe, because of the relationship that I had with the coach at Mitchell made me want to become a coach and not be like him. You know what I'm saying? Like, it kind of inspired me to, like, because that coach, to me, took away my basketball career. And, like, if you have a good coach, could either inspire you to go on to be better, or could discourage you to say, you know what, I'm not doing this no more. And that's not just with sports. That's with anything. A good teacher, a good mentor can put a battery in your back and make you achieve great things, or they could do you a disservice and convince you that the things that you're doing are not right. You know what I'm saying? So
Mhm.
yeah, I think that's what happened at Mitchell. But for yourself, were you about to add on to that?
No, I was gonna say, yeah, because I didn't really go. I mean, we can always go into the real detail of the basketball side of Mitchell, but yes, yeah, the Mitchell years. To your question earlier, I think that's where I had an opportunity just to develop my talent outside of school. Because once I graduated, I think Tyler at the time said, "Anthony, you haven't even touched your potential yet." And I didn't really, it took me a while to really understand what he was saying. Like, I know you're good, but you haven't really touched it yet. And I think just wanting to really do some work at that level, um, especially coming off the bench, which is another part that people didn't realize. I came in that year. I came off the bench probably like 2 or 3 games in, and then we
Two
had
games, third game they started you.
yeah. All right.
Yeah,
So yeah,
yeah.
third game I had like
I
12.
think you had 36 off the bench in the second game, and that was it. There's like, nah, we got to start this game.
Yeah, it was like this. Yeah, third game I think I came off the bench. I had like 31 or something like that.
Yeah,
Then the fourth game I had like 30 something. Then the fifth game was like 40, and then okay, Then they started me after like I think the third game, but I think it was one of those things, just being confident in the moment. Obviously, there's some negative things that I learned, and I picked up some habits that probably came in to be detrimental. I would say a lot of it is around the work habits. When you are just focused on just being good without putting in the hard work, and I've seen people put in hard work and yield better results. So for me at the time in Mitchell, it was about being gifted at shooting, but being quick, being athletic. I was able to do that, very well. Averaged pretty decent, scores that year. Then the second year I came back. I actually signed a Division I scholarship after like several games, which I would tell any young players. And I grew up without a father, not having someone to help me through that process. And I made some decisions that ultimately wasn't the best decision. But so if anyone that's listening, I always tell you, if you have a father or a coach in your hand and you're going out here, you're getting recruited, just have an advisor, have someone that can really talk through the overall business side of basketball, because that came back to hurt me, afterwards. But I would share that. So imagine coming in JUCO, signing Division I offer after like 7 games. You play the whole year, then you come back the next year, you lead the nation in scoring, and then about 50 points off from being an all-time leader scorer in that JUCO history. So it's one of those things that you speak to how it came to that point, which a lot of people didn't really know I was doing a lot of that work at JUCO. Only a few people around the hood knew when we played against Dale, and a few people came down, and dudes were like, "Man, Ant down there killing." But otherwise than that, not a lot of people really knew. And shout out to Jackie too. Jackie always kind of kept up to date with what was going on. But otherwise than that,
Sonny too. Sonny Thomas too. Sonny from the club.
Yep. So but I would like to touch on something you mentioned, Reg, because that's one of the things that kind of propelled me into some of the work that I do now. You had mentioned a coach can, truly destroy your dreams or elevate you or exalt you to reach, higher heights. So the same goes for being a leader, because I remember us having some deep conversations, and I was in a position of power and influence, but I had no idea I was in such power of influence as a person that the coach respected. So even when I'm there and he giving you a hard time or other players a hard time, not using your voice. That's why, you love your LeBrons, you love your other ones that really speak up in the moment, because it takes a lot of courage. And I was young in my leadership role, but I'll definitely tell you that you were pushing me back then, and I didn't really quite, understand it. So I think the work that I do now, I understand why it's important when you have influence to do for others or put people in position to be successful long term. So I get it, and I applaud you for what you're doing with our alma mater at Weaver, or what you did at your alma mater at Weaver. We'll touch on that a little bit later, but I love the fact that you brought a championship to our, to the alma mater, and all the lives that you've touched through the work that you're doing. So I want to know. All right.
Appreciate that. We had some great leaders that we probably didn't look at the moment like that, but I think when you get older, in hindsight, it's 2020. You know what I mean? And I always tell people about Sonny Thomas, being one of the people who shaped me. Mr. Brown, aka Mr. Jihad, Block, and Dave Chapman. Like we had some really good men in our corner who were trying to steer us the right way. You know what I mean? They weren't perfect. Nobody's perfect, but they were definitely in the right place. And you know, like I think about some of our peers that were doing the wrong things or running the streets. They still had the utmost respect for the Boys and Girls Club, for Sonny, for Block, you know, for Dave, you know,
Mhm.
those kinds of people. So, um, you know, I try to emulate what those people were, you know, because they were definitely trying um, to do right by us, by all of us.
Yep.
So after you had your All American seasons at Mitchell College, you get recruited to go to Sacred Heart. Um, you attend Sacred Heart University, and you were there for 1 year, just 1 year, right?
Yep. I was there for 1 year. Uh,
And and then you had to leave, and you end up going to University of Hartford. You want to talk about the whole what happened at Sacred Heart that you had to get out of there? I always felt, just give my quick opinion, that that was not that school was not conducive to your playing style. They didn't realize what they had, even though they recruited you. I think they recruited you to try to convert you to a point guard and not really let you let the ball fly. You know what I'm saying? So and yeah, so I feel like it was just a case of just being at the wrong place at the wrong time.
mhm.
But you know, you can speak on that better than I can. So, you know, what at Sacred Heart.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. So I signed with Sacred Heart. Went there. Had myself, a few other dudes. One dude from my boy Dante that was from Baltimore. One of my good guys. RP Colin Watson that was from Mount Vernon, New York. And then another one, Dev, from California, but he in Atlanta now, and a few other ones. But we came from some urban areas, and the coach, even though he had success at the D2 level, and I think they were inaugural year that were transitioning to Division 1. So my mentality just coming from the from the hood is like, hey, no matter where we go play at, if you put in work, you're gonna put in work. You just gonna get seen. So
Right.
having that mentality instead of looking at the business side of, is that coach ready? Have they have this kind of prior experience? What's the success? What's their track record? All those things that I know now as an adult, I needed somebody to really be on me to say, maybe maybe that's not the right place. Go to a place that you'll have a high probability of being successful. Everything that you kind of just touched on, Reg.
Hmm.
So I get there. The first thing, I was a little light. Probably like a buck 60 wet. I probably like a buck 65. That's
Hmm.
real skinny and light. So he wanted me to ultimately redshirt. And I'm like, man, I don't got time to redshirt. I'm trying to feed my family. I'm trying to get to this
Right.
gym.
Right.
So I was like, nah, I don't want a redshirt. You want to hit the weight rooms, man. I ain't never hit a weight room in my life. So
Right.
you get stronger and all of those things take a year to get stronger. So that was one advice that he was trying to give me, but I wasn't receptive to it. So so I said, nah, I want to play now. And so I started pushing to try to play. And he was one of those coaches that started giving me a hard time, to the point where I just started like hating playing. And he was trying to convert. I remember pulling up for a three on a break. He's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "Yo, you recruited me for this." And let me go back a little bit. So the head assistant that recruited me, they got into it, and then he left. So sometimes you hear these scenarios where you have a recruiter that comes in and recruits you, understand your capabilities, then you don't have an advocate when they're having conversation. So you don't have that person that can fight for you, and then he has his own perspective. Then he's giving me a hard time. Then I'm like, I don't got time for this. And so I'm giving back a little attitude, and it just got very contentious. So it got to a point where I just hated playing, and it affected my academics. That I wasn't even as focused as I could, just to be able to maintain that the average that I needed. So it got to a point, I think we had scrimmage army or something like that. Had a few, had like 10 points or so. And he was like, "Hey, you want a red shirt?" I was like, "Nah, I don't want a red shirt. I want to play." So fast forward practices leading up to the start of the season. I think we had kicked off the season against University of Hartford. Um, and I only played like 10 minutes. I didn't score. Um, And I'm hearing the whole time, I'm hearing like Coach Smith, I respect Coach Smith to this day. And he had a son on the team playing for U-Heart at the time. And he's like, put Anthony Barrett in the game. And he kept yelling, put Anthony Barrett in the game. Because at the same time, looking at these dudes from U-Heart that I was walking across Weaver to the train tracks and kill, I understand killing somebody. And if I go out there, they're going to look at me like, yeah, this dude about to get it in right now. And when a coach, and you spoke to, when a coach don't really understand what they have and what they're sitting, because I was the same guy sitting at Weaver when I was coming in on the freshman team, that I didn't realize I was the same guy when I became a senior. So sometimes you can accelerate someone's growth, or you can stagnate their growth.
Right.
I'm sitting there and I'm like, damn, I'm sitting there like embarrassed, disappointed, depressed, because I see people that understand what I'm able to do, what I'm capable of doing. And I'm looking at these dudes killing us, and we lost. And I'm like, yo, these dudes know me. I can go eat their food. Trust me, I'm gonna put serotonin on them. They go,
That is the worst. One of the worst feelings. Will talked about that last week when that you can help your team, but your coach doesn't believe it. And especially if you're playing against dudes who you've already killed before. Like, these dudes know me. Like, we're playing against guys from U-Heart that know that I'm a killer. Even, like you said, Coach Smith's son is starting for Hartford, and he's telling your coach, like, yo, you got a ball player over there that you're not using. And it's real difficult because ultimately it's the coach's decision. The coach is the one making that decision. But I've been in that situation before. You see me in that situation before where you got people in the crowd like, put Reg in the game. You know what I'm saying? Or put Ed in the game. That's a tough situation to be in because it's humbling and hurtful. But it also, if you're a competitor, like, had y'all won the game, it would have been different. But to lose the game is like, yo, I don't want to play no more. Like, I could have helped. I could have knocked down that shot that the dude who was playing over me missed, type of thing. So I definitely understand how that. So how did that relationship turn out? Like in ultimate.
Yeah. So ultimately, this is where first time really facing some real adversity with basketball. Besides not making my grades in high school, but first time I kind of faced some adversity after that game. So after that game, I was embarrassed. Hated the fact that I was in this position. Didn't quite understand why I was in this position. But I know I could play. And he started picking on me even leading up to that when I told him no, I didn't want a red shirt. So it's one of the things you get in the doghouse. They don't find all the reasons to why you can't do something. At least that's how I'm seeing it.
Right.
So after that game, I went back to my my dorm, and I just went black, just zoned out. I didn't call a team. I missed practice. I didn't go back to practice. I literally sat there. They were calling home, checking my mother, see if I left school. I really missed 2 days. Then I finally touched base with the coach, and I had to go apologize to my team. And then that probably even, looking back now, that probably even made it worse. So what eventually happened, he said, hey, even though you played 10 games, the next game, I guess somebody kind of got hurt. You'd had 30 minutes this game. And it's one of those lessons, if you've never faced adversity, or you don't know how to manage it, or you don't have the bandwidth to overcome it because you've never been in that position. That's why sometimes you have coaches that really care from the early onset, from middle school, high school, AAU, that really help build the young boys or young girls' mental fortitude. That I can't stress how important that is when you're faced with adversity, that you remain calm, that you know how to persevere through it, that you've been through some stuff. So I think for me, just not know how to handle that, I shut down. I got upset. I got even further, angry. And then I was still in a doghouse. And then that's a few games into the season, because the season had started a little, in October, and we had our games were kind of scattered into leading up to Thanksgiving. So we didn't have too many games at that time. So we went home for the Thanksgiving break. I believe it was Thanksgiving break. And then when I came back, he had my locker room kind of cleared out. I think it was Thanksgiving or Christmas, one of them. I can't recall. And we were coming back, gearing up to play. It was Eric Barkley in the Garden. And I'm like, damn, I'm gonna play in the Garden. I'm excited, happy as hell. I came back and he was like, "Hey, your grades fell below a C average, and take your scholarship." And my locker room was empty. My sneakers was gone. Took like a computer from my dorm. This is a computer that they gave all students that got accepted. Like this dude really stripped. So I'm like, "Damn, home hate me like that?" Like, like stripped everything. They even leave the sneakers to me. Nothing. Home like stripped everything. So listen, man. So I went. So after that, when I came back to go to the locker room, I went looking for him, and man, I was chewing home out. I feel so disrespectful even saying it now. I was chewing home out like I'm chewing home like we was on the Albany Avenue, man. Every single word was coming out of my mouth that was filthy, and I was just loud and just it was just crazy. But I say it because it was hurtful that somebody in a position like that to do that to a young person, a young man at the time that was dependent on this opportunity, not just the fact that I was in school, but just to go through the process to get an education at the same time. Because it wasn't just about the ball. At least I'm in school making that effort. But to pull a scholarship while somebody comes back and not have any conversation or even say, "Hey, let me work with this young person." So he snatched up my scholarship. I cursed him out, and then that was a turning point in my life because that's when I realized, like, hey, you know what? I'm never gonna let no one dictate my life in that manner. So I made some decisions. I found my grit. I found my personality. I found what I was truly built like, and I discovered that in that trial. So afterwards, I went back. I said, okay, this man ain't gonna dictate if I get out of school, if I graduate, and so forth. So I started looking how to apply for financial aid, other resources to finish out that year at Sacred Heart and make sure I get my grades to make sure I could have enough to transfer out of there and not be in that environment. So eventually I did. It was a gentleman, I think, at the time that was at Sacred Heart. I don't know if he was on the board or he was part of like Vibe magazine. He had helped me out and just gave me some support how to get through some stuff. So I was able to able to leave there and transfer to the University of Hartford. And I made another, life-changing decision when I transferred to UHart because I just wanted to come home just to have some tranquility and some peace, and just be in a better place. So when I transferred, and I was thinking like, do I call any schools that I really want to go to? Because I'm at a level now where I probably can call and just shop around. But I said I'm just gonna go back home. So I decided because I didn't have any scholarship money, so I was gonna go home where I probably could just get financial aid and live at home and then go somewhere. So I chose just to go back home and go to UHart. But then I was getting ready to go to UHart and walk in there to go talk to the coach, literally upstairs, walking. Then I stopped and I said, you know what? I'm not going to play. I'm not going to do this. I don't got time to go through this mental push of fighting that and not knowing, I got to go uphill to fight when a coach has their recruiting class and who their favorite. I'm like, do I just sit here and focus on my grades and get out of school and go build my academic career or my professional career. So I decided to focus more on my academics just to get through school. And that was a life-changing decision I made. Sometimes I look back, what would have happened if I just kept playing? Mm-hmm. But I made the decision just to finish up my academics, and I graduated from there and went on to get my master's and so forth in business and do some doing some decent stuff. But that was a life-changing. I made two life-changing decisions happen with me with basketball, Sacred Heart, and a decision that I made at University of Hartford. But then I used to play with the players over there too, and I'm like, man, this dude nice, So
Yeah, I know people that was there with you that was saying that you would have been, like probably a starter on the team if you had decided to play. Like eventually you would have, like they thought you would have played a lot, but ultimately that decision that you made is the reason why you're sitting where you're sitting right now. So I don't want too much time to go by before you get into like who you are right now, what you're doing right now. Explain to the people what Girls for Technology and Boys Code is. What are those two companies that you pioneered and created along with your wife and basically what you're doing right now to give back to the community.
All right. So so the Girls Technology is a nonprofit organization. It's a 501c3. It was formed in 2015, really working to support young girls by creating pathways in STEM. We are recognized like STEM is obviously a fast growing. Every job nowadays involves some sort of STEM focus or technology driven. So we focus on getting young girls into technology, engineering pathways predominantly. We're able to teach young girls from coding to learning anything from Google Analytics to learning anything from knowing how to manage, cloud bases like Salesforce, all these different tools and skill set that young professionals need. So when you look at areas of gaps, we obviously don't have enough. Excuse me. We don't have enough. We don't have enough female engineers. We don't have enough female entrepreneurs. So we really try to push a lot of those different verticals to make sure we can be represented in those industries. We know when it comes to Black founders, we know that narrative. So we try to really push a lot of those different pathways. So for the Boys Code Initiative, it happens one day that we're doing so much with girls that I was just leaving my job at the Y as the executive director at the time. And I was like, man, it's just crazy. I've seen our young boys just running around here, and I'm looking like they're all looking for money. They're all trying to find ways to really do something they all want money at the end of the day. So I'm like, okay, well, the problem with our community, we don't always know a lot of the different industries and pathways that their passion can really yield really high returns. So if you're into art, you don't think about gaming. You don't think about game design. If you're into music, you don't think about gaming. Somebody has to write the score. Somebody has to do the background design. You can get paid decent. You can be a freelancer. We're in a gig economy. The workforce is shifting from degrees to skills. It's more about certification. So like understanding our community and the job market is not the way that it's not just about degrees in order for us to be successful. So we have to really teach our community how to really look and find niche points or how to build digital assets, how to build things to really stand up and not be dependent on a system that's built in white supremacy or institutional racism and processes that does not yield good results for Black communities. So I really try to push a lot of our young girls, our Black and brown boys and men to really look at different ways to really start building and increasing their earning power, but then also how to build, wealth along that pathway. So that's that. And then we have some other ventures that I can't wait to roll out. I can't really say too much now, but we got some ventures that we're going to roll out directly for the community that benefits the community. So the work that I do now kind of leads back. If I'm in a position of influence, how can I use it to make better so we can grow our economy and we can have, what you call economy of scale for us to all get to a point where we can be sustainable for our community. So at this point, I consider myself more of a servant leader, just doing what I got to do to make sure we all eat. And I think sometimes people may not recognize all the opportunities of how they are all interconnected and how can I leverage whatever resources I have to benefit someone else.
So I also know that your companies have had some wins, some awards, and been recognized for some of the work that the young ladies. I know some of the young ladies involved with Girls with Technology were recognized for something they created. And I know that you were spotlighted by Yahoo, I believe. Was it Yahoo Business? As somebody to look out for. So talk a little bit about some of the wins and successes that you had with your companies and moving forward.
Yep. So, so for young girls that are young women now that went through that process, they had designed a chatbot that they eventually pitched at a Engineer for a Week competition up at Facebook HQ. They had about, I believe it was like 20 other teams across the country. So they went there, they pitched, and they were selected for the most social impact. They had designed a chatbot around, workforce, implicit bias, unconscious bias, all those things in the workplace, and how to navigate the workplace as a Black woman. So they designed it out and they pitched it and they won for best social impact. That was a great experience because it was great just going to Facebook and seeing how they operate at Facebook. That was actually really, really pretty cool. But we've also had young ladies that came through our programs that are now a few years into interning at Google, that are at Emory and a few other colleges that are likely to have a full-time job once they complete it. Once they complete college or graduate out of college. So it's about creating opportunities that otherwise wouldn't be there. So that's really what it's about, is creating access and opportunity, which is critical, besides capital, for our sustainability in our community. So what we're working on now is really about how do we put capital to the people that really truly need it? How do we put capital to our entrepreneurs? How do we put capital to our solopreneurs? How do we put capital to startups? So that's some of the things that we're working on the back end to really, design some programs that can really stand up our community, because we need more representation, and we got to build up our culture. And forgot it. What else you had mentioned? Something else that I wanted to.
Yeah, the Yahoo situation.
Yes. And for Yahoo, there's a few projects that came about, basically, just being recognized for some of the work that my wife's doing, that I'm doing in conjunction and alongside, and being recognized for some of the stuff that we're working on. Like I didn't mention that we're also in the process of working on I want to call it a job board or a platform that really speaks to sourcing talent, especially Black talent and the gig economy and creatives. It's definitely, definitely around content driven, definitely around making sure that holistic supports, and where we need to have dollars. So everything that you ever hear me speak about, even through our organization and our programs and our initiative, is always going to be around economic mobility, economic sustainability, and increasing individuals' earning power, but also building wealth, which is assets and ownership. And you can do a lot of that through entrepreneurship, and then learning the business side. We got to have more people creating businesses and knowing the proper formations of corporations, S Corp, C Corp, else, and really know how to use them, and then know how to leverage partnerships. So all of those kind of things is things that we're working on in part and pushing out to our community. So we're recognized for that, and I think it is shared that we're building out a digital platform, which we're still in the process of working with developers to put out. But it's a lot of work, but it's multiple things when you're an entrepreneur. And this is a decision I made. I think I didn't share it, but when I stepped down because it's a different driver when you're passionate about building for your own versus working for a system, or working through bureaucracy, when you can control your own fate based on your own gumption and your own purpose and drive.
So I think it needs to be said that it's amazing, like, to hear, just based on this past couple minutes of you being interviewed, that you went from someone who struggled academically to even remain eligible in high school, and then you also had some academic issues in college, to being recognized by Yahoo as one of the up and coming people in Black technology, so to speak. Like, what I mean? I think that's so inspirational to hear that someone with meager beginnings academically, so to speak, is still making those kinds of moves and creating opportunities for others, and not forgetting about some of the people who sit in the same seats that he sat in. And I also, just based on talking to you privately, I know that you're aware that education doesn't fit a lot of our young Black kids. So a lot of them are being convinced that they're not smart, and that's the reason why they're not succeeding the way that their counterparts are. And I feel like you are creating platforms to help that specific demographic, simply because what it feels like for somebody, because I was around at the time, and not everybody was supportive. You know what I mean? When you were struggling, or when a lot of us were struggling. I mean, I remember even Tyler was saying. I remember Tyler was saying it in the newspaper one time. He was like, "I don't really start getting focused on my team until after the grades come out, because every year we gonna lose, 2 or 3 guys once the grades come out." You know what I mean? It's like at Weaver, it's like when that semester in the semester hit, that's when you find out, okay, well, we got a chance to win the chip this year, because we thought this person wasn't gonna make it, they made it, type of thing. So I think that where you are dealing with that specific demographic and giving them an outlet, or giving them confidence where the system might be taking it away from them, and I think that needs to be applauded and pointed out.
Appreciate that.
That you're doing that for us, for our community. What the last couple of minutes, what have you been watching the NBA this year? Do you have any opinion on the Brooklyn Nets. I heard they signed Thanos. I heard they signed Thanos now. Like, you know what I mean? They signed Superman and Aquaman. They they got they got like 6 Olympians on the squad now. Do you have an opinion on that, or do you think that are they going to win a championship now that they're loaded like that, or what is your thought on the NBA this year?
Oh man, I think yeah, yeah. I actually just saw the meme with the Thanos. I was like, that's crazy. No, but yeah, I know. Obviously, I still like the Lakers, man. I don't never bet against LeBron. But that Brooklyn squad, whew, it's a lot of it's a lot of talent. I don't think Blake Griffin is washed. I think when you're in, like what I spoke about earlier, when you're not in a good space or you with an organization that's pretty toxic, you don't always put forth your best effort. So I think
Right.
when he's with a good culture and he could feel, and if they position him in the right place to be successful and how to use them in the right schemes, he gonna do very well up there. And then you add AD, so they have all the little pieces, and they'll be used at the right times when they need that kind of presence. AD knocks the mid range down. Maybe they're playing against a team where they're struggling. They just need him to bang and be able to knock a mid range down. But he can also stretch it. Blake is athletic, so and they needed some of the bigs. And then obviously, Kyrie, Kyrie, one of my favorite players too. So like they got all the tools, man.
LaMarcus Aldridge is still very good, man. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yes,
this is that's a big signing right there. They got him and Blake and DeAndre Jordan. And Kyrie, like you said, Kyrie is unguardable. James Harden is unguardable, and Kevin Durant is still hurt. Like, you know what I mean?
So like if they decide to go small ball and be more flexible, they can put Blake out there who's shooting 3, but he big enough to be able to bang with people enough. And then you got KD that's 6'11", 7 feet that can be down here. They just got all the right.
KD can be a small ball center. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah. Yo. And if Kyrie go down or James go down, they still have enough offensive power to win some games. They stacked. But then again, the Philly boys play decent. They've got good defense. Embiid was killing before he got hurt. So it's not going to be an easy way out of the East.
Miami stacked up.
Miami too.
They just stacked up. And there's talk now that Avery Bradley is about to be waived, and the Lakers might be trying to pick him back up.
I think I saw you post about Avery Bradley, man. I'm making bad decisions, man. So
he
needs that body in the corner, man. And I get it. Some of it is financial, but you got to look at the future value of money and where you can position yourself to be successful in a long term. And he probably would have made that money that he thought he was gonna make.
Here's the proof.
Yeah.
Avery Bradley was the best guard on the Lakers team. He's better than KCP.
Yeah.
KCP just signed for $40 million.
Yeah.
That would have been your money.
Exactly.
KCP just signed a contract you would have got if you stayed.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And it's one of those things where you got to stay relevant and in the public eye. KCP was out here winning a championship. Bro, like, hey, he out here playing defense. And LeBron be out there like inking some of them contracts.
No doubt. LeBron owns clutch. Like,
exactly.
It's me, honestly, it's a conflict of interest, yo.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, Bron is really affiliated with the company that's signing all these dudes.
Listen, man, I was reading, I don't know if it was on CBS, and they were talking about like one of the signings. They was like LeBron and like the Lakers agree to like they agreed to like
no, I just saw that they wanted to sign Lowry. But Toronto wanted THT.
Yeah.
Horton Tucker, and LeBron was like, nah, like that's my young guy. I just, he just signed a clutch. I need that. Like, no, we're not getting rid of him.
Yo, that is funny. I'm just saying, I get it because they respect him because he's their marquee player. So they just, but at the same time, they publicly be putting stuff out like he in the negotiation talks in there at the table working with them.
He is, man. I think my man, his name escapes me right now. I think what's his partner name that be doing it?
Rich Paul.
I think Rich Paul going to meetings with his phone on like speaker and put it down, like right in there listening. Like, he put the phone on the table, like, all right, what y'all said? Go ahead. Like
got an earpiece with Brian in it. Like he listen.
Brian over there texting like, nah, say no. We're not doing that.
Yeah.
Well, did you see the thing posted about the young boy, the 5-year-old that got arrested? They put the cuffs on him.
No, I ain't seen that.
Oh yeah, well you gotta check that out. So we'll go to the next topic. What about Little Nas X? Did you see his video?
Nah, man, Raj, man, I ain't keep it 100 with you, Raj, man. I'm so like, I be working crazy.
I get you.
I haven't had a chance to even watch videos at the time. I feel like I ain't watched basketball since Bron went down. I try to watch Steph. I usually like watching Steph, Kyrie, and Bron. That's usually most of the games I try to catch. That's about it. All the games I try to catch.
Any big projects you got coming up that that you could talk about? I know you got stuff that you can't really put out there yet, but what's the rest of 2021 looking like for you?
Just some other programs for Girl Signage we're rolling out, some entrepreneurship ones. But the big project that I'm really working on and that we're working on, I can't disclose it yet, but it's gonna be something just game changing. A spot that's gonna be, for you to be able to have access to the rest of the community, have access to a place where we can really start looking to build up our culture. Really want to create that kind of ecosystem, like how you get when you're in Atlanta or Charlotte or DC area. We got to be able to drive that kind of innovation around here, and we have to have Black founders at the heart of that. We got to be we got to drive that kind of culture, and we could shift it. It's not that we don't have talent. And I'll share this quote by Mitch Kapoor, which is an entrepreneur. Access and opportunity. Education is evenly distributed by zip code. Access and opportunity or not. So what that means is that it's not that we're not smart or educated. It's just like, what access and opportunities do we really get? And sometimes when you can't get those opportunities directly because you don't have privilege or you wasn't birthed into it, you got to really create it. So that's really what I'm working to do, just create those access points, create those opportunities, and then all I need is for my people just to come through and take advantage of it and use it so they can really build sustainable stuff for their families and stop being dependent on a system that's not structured in place for us to be successful. That's it.
Do you see yourself getting involved with politics in Hartford?
Oh man, I know. When people came up to me and say, "Hey, you should run for mayor," and I'm like, "Nah, man, that ain't my thing." Not really. At one point, it came across my mind like, "Hey, maybe I should run for mayor." I feel like I know enough people I can garner enough support. I grew up in the city, passionate about the city, but I don't really think too much about it. But if there's enough public demand for it, then I don't know how it even works. I guess you'd be an independent, since I'm not part of no Democratic or Republican town committee or anything along those lines. I guess I'd be independent.
Or you could start more at the local level as like a state rep or whatever. That's usually how people build their resume.
Yeah, Reg. If I go in, I'm just going in off the rip, man. I'm just going right. I'm going right for the mayor joint, man.
Yeah, you should. You always been a logo. You've been a logo shooter your whole life, man. You think
Yeah, I gotta go right. Yeah, they always say, "Hey, aim for the top." You study what you need to be a mayor. Understand the city. Understand municipality. Understand government. We know we have a city that has crazy. The tax base is crazy here. There's a lot of nonprofits, so that so that part they need more business formation. Need more people paying taxes. The city has a lot of issues. So when you look at the economics of the city of Hartford, especially the North End, that's why I always focus. How can we build that up so we can have better economics overall and have more people creating businesses, which creates another tax base, but also creates opportunities for them to build and have sustainability. I want to keep, going over it, but that's why it's important that you build that kind of stuff up, because then you have assets. But yeah, city government, it's a lot to it, but it would be good to see somebody that's homegrown be in office. It would be nice. Just like when you see other cities across the country where the predominant, if you look at the North Hartford and it's about 70-80% Black, and then, or just if you look across both and you see it's probably only 10% is white. I don't know the exact data, but I know there's a large portion of it is Black or Latinx or minority groups, however you want to, coin it. Then the people in offices usually represent that particular, demographic. and historically we have it. And I think when you look at your DCs and certain places you go, you know you're gonna have a black mayor in office
Right.
because they represent the population they're serving. There's a cultural competency there. There's understanding. There's gaps when you're making decisions, and then having people that are tuned in. So that's
So we just recently had the 30-year anniversary of the '91 championship team. What's your opinion on that team? I know you were around. You wasn't in high school playing with them or nothing like that, but you were around to see that team with Mark Lurie and Diggs and
yeah.
so yeah, man. Like, what's your opinion on that team? That was the first team in 20 years, the first team from the city, from Hartford, in 20 years to win a state championship at the time they did it.
So that's our OGs right there, man. We say OGs, we're not that too far off, but we respected them because we didn't even understand what they did. We just know they won a championship because they were still humble around the way. They still come, dogs still coming to the park, Ronell coming to the park. Obviously we were playing against Mark, Lurie, which is one of the best talent around that no one ever really talks about enough. But when we realized he won that championship, he was a junior. And
it's scary. They changed the rule years later, but Mark could have played in '92 as well, and they probably would have went back to back.
Yes, because Diggs was out there killing. Eddie Iverson was out there when I came in as a freshman. But when you look at it, and you realize that I wasn't a freshman. I don't know where I was. I'm losing track of time. So, but.
No, you was a freshman that year. That just the Mark Lurie senior year that he didn't play.
Yes, you're right. Yeah. Yes, and Mark was walking around Weaver, and he was an All-State the previous year, killing it. I'm like, man, you got an All-State player here, probably arguably the best point guard in the state. Not playing because of a restriction. And I spoke to Mark, and he said with just some mix up with the paperwork, how his mom submitted paperwork and the timing because he was from like Jersey, and that's crazy that. They probably would have won back to back. Definitely.
And now that I understand the coaching side of it, that cost him scholarship opportunities.
Yes.
Like he would have definitely went to school for free had he been able to play that last year.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? Like, so he basically sat around Weaver doing nothing his senior year, and you're not hot no more. Your name not in the papers. The coaches forgot about him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, so that's crazy to think about. That they probably would have went back to back that year had Mark still been able to play, because remember that year, Bud and Coop, all of them, they left and would go. But Bud went to prep school because he didn't want to stay around because Mark couldn't play. You know what I mean? So Bud probably would have stayed. It would have been a whole domino effect.
Man, they had a team, man. They had a team, and they still had young Monty there. Weaver was stacked, man. Weaver was poised.
Okay, I'm about to put you on the spot right now, though. I'm about to put you on the spot, Ant. 91 Weaver team versus 93 Hartford Public with Canby. Who wins that game?
Yeah, all right. Yo, the electricity went out. I was the gym that day. Oh man.
Yo, Canby was out of his time, man. Like, Canby would have been a $100 million guy in today's NBA.
Hell yeah. Man. Oh my gosh. Cause you look at size. I just want to base the size because Marcus was tall. But when you look, because he's definitely tall, and then they had good surrounding players around him.
They had Tavar Kloss was like 6'6"
Yeah, so they had the body.
NFL player, by the way, so he's not getting bullied by anybody.
Yeah, so Harper Pub has the body, but then you look at Weaver's side and the grit, and it was like the heart is just built a little different on Weaver's side. Not saying it's not built like that on the Pub side. They have the talent. I don't know.
Harper High still have. They had Silk. They had Kendrick Moore.
Yeah. All I'm saying is that they was loaded, man. They was loaded. Both teams was loaded, man. It's just different matchups because you still had Mark Lurie, you still had Diggs. You got Dog, which is a great defender, and you can be tall. And if you have somebody like Dog who's very smart in position basketball, can keep you out the post, box you out, and they can limit Marcus' capability to hit the glass. So, listen, man,
Darren McGregor and Ronell used to jump out the gym at that time.
And Darren was a good defender too, because he went on a U-Heart. So
right.
Listen, man, I still remember seeing a paper with Darren like this with the
right.
You know?
With
so
yeah. That would have been dope. But that Hartford High team was really, really, really good, man. They were really, really good. Really good from top to bottom.
I agree.
I remember the battle that you had with Richard Martinez. You remember that?
Yeah, I was saying all good dudes over there at Hartford High too, man.
You and Richard Martinez was shooting like I'm saying the year Hartford High second championship year. We pushed them. I think we was up at halftime or something like that. And
Kendrick
took over in the fourth quarter, but you was on fire that game. I remember
that was like my second game into coming off of academic suspension.
Yeah,
I played like 8 games that season.
Right.
You know, I came towards the end and we played Hartford High, and I think I missed a shot like at the buzzer, like tie it up from like half court. But yeah, because they were like number 1 team in the state, and we were like, man, listen, man, we've been ready, and I've been sitting back watching, like, I'm ready to play against the Pub, but we just couldn't always get it right together at Harvard.
It was Silk. Silk was just so poised and smart. Just every run we went on, he just calmed his team down. Like,
yeah.
Kendrick,
I agree, man. Yeah. Kendrick always got that. He definitely. The Harvard Public always got the best out of it in some of the games, right? Because I remember clearly talking junk to Silk in the Doc Hurley Classic, and next thing I know, like, hey, we said something that tipped it off. Silk was right at the rim, like, hey, baby, you're right at the rim, put it in. I'm like, damn. They always, man, them dudes represent, man. I got no.
We had no right being cocky like that. Like, we was really talking to them like, yeah, buddy, it's on now.
Yeah, like, I just remember seeing them flying through the air like, yo, damn, these dudes is out here ready.
Yeah, I think no lie. I mean, I know you just said it, but I think Kendrick caught a dunk off the opening tap.
That's what I'm saying. Just before that, we had just played with them the summer before, traveling with Jackie. Then the dudes came out there ready, man. And I was like, damn, we weren't ready. We weren't mentally positioned in a place to be successful against them. And sometimes I guess that's part about coaching too, is managing, cockiness, egos, to just to be humble in that process, and that yields better results. But being cocky or overly arrogant and not really knowing your opponents, and we never watched film, but I'm pretty sure they were studying us. We weren't studying them as much. We just blind arrogance.
I remember saying stupid stuff like, yo, Marcus just tall. Like, you know what I mean? Like, this is the number 2 pick in the NBA draft in a few years.
Yeah.
We like, man, he just tall. We're going to take it at him.
We're going to bully him. We're going to have what's his name? Big, what's his name? Bully him because he had some muscles. We're going to have home talk, junk to Marcus.
Yeah, Kurt and Van Allen. We like, yo, Marcus don't want smoke with Van Allen.
Man.
It was
good times. Yeah. Much love to John Van Allen too, man. John definitely never backed down. John's a hard player. One of my favorite players too.
No doubt. Kahari played well against Marcus.
Yep, man. Shout out to Kahari too. Yeah, Kahari did very well.
Yeah,
very well.
Might have caught an air one on him. I think that dunk was kind of.
I think he kind of grazed it in there.
Yeah. Right. I remember Troy went up and blocked Marcus dunk. Troy Westbury. Like, they played hard for about a quarter.
Yeah. That Pub team they had good chemistry, man. They had good chemistry, and they were built. They were built different too, man. Great chemistry.
Bridge, right? Steve White was a 20-point scorer the year before at Buckley. So he transferred over. So they had a 20-point scorer coming off their bench. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like they were loaded.
Yeah, Fridge had a
I remember Tamaya didn't even play that year.
I know.
And Tamaya he would have started.
Yeah.
When we played in the summertime, Tamaya started on the that team when
Yeah, I know.
So
all I'm saying is that I don't know if it's coaching or not, because they had a coach or they just loved playing together and they understood each other and they were in the right system. But we had talent too, but we could never put it together for it to yield the results like how they had. Because it was definitely talent, and then we couldn't keep half these dudes in school anyway. That we needed to keep in school focused on ball. So.
Right. We needed like a mentor program or a study, like a study hall, mandatory. Like we needed some stuff like that in place. And just
the culture at Weaver wasn't built for that, right? We were like, man, we ain't going no damn study hall. We out because that's how we was back then anyway.
Yo, but I feel like somebody like Jihad could have did. We was in Jihad room chilling. Yeah. You know what I mean? But it would have had to be somebody who understood our culture and met us halfway.
Yep.
It couldn't have been come in, sit down, take out your homework.
Yep.
Nah, we ain't dealing with that. You know what I mean? But somebody that spoke our language, like a Sonny or a Dave Chapman or a Block, they could have got us to do our work. You know what I mean? Like, but again, we as men understand that we didn't get that as teenagers.
I agree with that.
So, well, brother, listen, man, this has been a great interview. Was there anything that you wanted to leave the people with before we sign off?
Just maximize your gifts, and if you haven't discovered your gift, tap into it, pray for it, discover what there's a saying by Mark Twain that says figure out the two most important days in your life: the day that you're born and the day that you know why. And it's critical that you do that and then work towards that gift. And once you discover it, work towards it and make sure you have some sort of impact or leave something that others can benefit. I guess I would say that's it.
Well, let me sum this up by saying to you, as your friend and being able to watch I've pretty much been around for your entire career basketball wise. You are a legend on the basketball court. However, your second half of your life and doing the business things and the mentorships and the creation of vehicles to help the community has exceeded what you were on the basketball court. You're having a very strong second half. Your first half was very impressive, but even more impressive is the things that you're doing after basketball, as a man and as a businessman, as a father, as a husband, as a leader in the community. And it's very, very great to watch. I think Weaver's been joking and talking about it. But the demographics at Weaver, we earn that reputation that, the Weaver guys, don't act right or, they fall off after high school. But there's a few of us out here that are really shining examples, man. It's brothers like yourself, like Chewy, like Ronell. It's a lot of people in this community from Weaver, from the dirt, from the mud like we are, that are really, really doing great jobs across the board of being, great citizens after high school. And I think that you're a shining example of that. That's why I wanted to have you come on here, and I appreciate you giving me your time, brother.
Thank you, Raj. I appreciate the kind words, Raj.
No doubt. All right, Blackprint audience, thank you for rocking with me. This was episode 7. I see y'all next week. Peace.